Hi, Thea. On today's show,
Sherry.
we are with Thea Duncan, and she is the founder and CEO of Doing Italy. How awesome is that? So, we're going to talk a little bit about what Doing Italy is, and even us as friends. If you notice, we kind of look alike. So
Mm-hmm.
we grew up with a lot of people kind of like confusing us. We're both from Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I met Thea. I mean, we go back to like elementary and middle school, but like we really became really good friends like in our adult years, just kind of bonding over like manifestation and energy. She's one of those friends. But I'll let you talk a little bit about yourself, maybe like
Mm-hmm.
how you kind of like started this journey. I know that you went to the University of Miami, and
Mm-hmm.
how'd you get into this whole Italian thing? You're Trinidadian American, so it's like, how'd you get into that? Talk to us a little bit about that.
How'd I get into Italy? I like to say I've been in a love affair with Italy for the past 20 something years. And since I'm in a love affair, it makes sense that it started with a love affair. So I had, I can't even say little because he's actually quite tall. He's probably like 6'2", Italian boyfriend. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where'd you meet him? Was this before dating apps? Where did you meet him?
Yeah, this was before dating apps, people. I'm kind of glad I kind of missed all of that, dating myself, dating, aging, whatever. So he was an exchange student at my university, and Shari and I go way back. We always went to like an international school in Miami, and we were studying Spanish. And I was like, I'm gonna go live in Spain, And
Yeah.
here
And we
comes
actually
along.
the school sent us on a trip to Spain. Like we had to
Yes, we
like do this
did.
weird immersion program. But yeah, continue with your story.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, we were like full immersion, 3 hours of Spanish, but not just Spanish language, Spanish history, Spanish culture, all that kind of stuff. So, I'm in university thinking international studies. I want to be a diplomat. Um, gonna go study abroad in Spain, and I meet this Italian guy who is incredibly romantic and incredibly attentive. And he's like, "You need to come to Italy." And I'm like, "No."
You fell for that Italian charm, like
Yeah, go
that
figure.
suave. Yeah.
Yes, even though he's a really good guy. We're still friends. So eventually he convinced me to do a semester in Italy because I wasn't giving up on my Italian dream, my Spanish dream. But I got to Italy and I was like, Spain
My
was
headphones fell.
fun,
Sorry,
but
my
Italy is my
headphones.
country. And
Can you
so
still hear me? I hate
yeah,
technology. My headphones fell and then it's like connected. I was like, was I not connected before? Anyways, continue with your story. Go ahead.
well, anyways,
Right.
long story short, I fell in love with Italy. I'm like, this country rocks. And so I did my semester in Italy and I was like, I just have to figure out how to get back here, which ended up being as a scholarship from Rotary International a few years later to do my master's degree. And it was in Milan. And so I had the honor and the privilege to work for some of like the biggest names. I was literally in the corporate communications department of Gucci doing stuff for the CEO, And I remember when I went to my very first Gucci fashion show and all of that, only to realize that while I love fashion and I think it's awesome, I don't like working in the industry. So a few years later, I started doing Italy as a way for people to get to know Italy beyond like this kind of like superficial rush, rush, rush. Let me go to like 10 destinations in 1 week. And then with COVID, that transitioned into taking people even further. Let's like immersing them in Italy and Italian life, which became helping people move to Italy.
Nice. Well, first of all, I know that you're drinking a cup of Shari's tea. I saw some steam coming up. So
Can you
cheers to
see it?
that. Cheers
Cheers.
to
I
that.
love my cup of tea and my pretty cup.
Which tea are you drinking? So this show is called Tea and Tim's, right? So it's a little bit of like bougie, right? You're gonna get the classy, but then you're also gonna get the down to earth. Like you
Right.
are a working mom that's doing her thing. So it's like you can have the best of both worlds. And when
Mm.
people see me, generally, like I'm in a hoodie, a
When is
backpack
that
on.
true? Every time I
Yes,
see you, you're always looking fabulous, Sherry.
you
And
no,
I'm like,
that's the
yeah,
tea. That's the
huh?
tea. That's the tea. I'm gonna take this headphones out. That's the tea side of me. The Tim side of me, I guess it's 80-20. you see the tea side 20% of the time. So I catch you
Mm.
those times, but it's really, I'm like down to earth. I'm really down to earth, and I'm glad that you're drinking your tea. Is there a particular one? I'm drinking the caramel black tea today.
Right
Which one are
now,
you
I'm
drinking?
drinking your goji berry oolong, which is my transition to getting less caffeine in the afternoon. So
Well,
it's
oolong
delicious.
does have caffeine, but it has less than black. And I
It
know
has
that you're a black
less,
tea drinker.
less. I
Yeah.
am a black tea drinker. So
And
this
then
was
what
like
about
the
like
transition.
what about the whole espresso and stuff in Italy? Is that like a big misconception that you guys drink a
No,
lot of
no, it's a
coffee all
huge
day?
deal, but coffee upsets my stomach. So I literally like, it's not cute. So I don't drink coffee.
Well, cheers to tea. I love it.
It's a good quality tea because I'm not drinking any crappy low quality tea.
Exactly. You've always put me onto some really good tea companies
Oh
and
my
stuff like in
God.
Paris and all that good stuff. So tell us a little bit about like doing Italy. Like, how'd you even get into that? So we know that you had the Italian stallion boyfriend at the University of
Mm,
Miami who introduced you to Italy. Then you
yeah.
went over there, did your master's. Like, how'd you actually make the transition to start a business and then in a foreign country? First of all, I mean, yeah, you studied the language, so obviously you sound like them. You don't really look Italian. You don't look like them. So it's like them meaning Italian, the stereotypical
Yeah.
Italian. When you started your business there, how difficult was it? Because it's probably not starting, it's not similar to starting a business here in America, right? So what was it like?
Well, starting a business in Italy is like a completely different ball game, and I strongly suggest if you ever want to do that, you get help. And my hubby can help you with that, right? Like it is for example, and I'm not going to go too much into it. For example, in your first year of business, you have to pay taxes on the money they expect you will make, right? So even before you make any money,
Time out, time out, time out. So I'm a tax attorney. We know that I'm a tax attorney. What, so how would they get around you saying like, I expect to make $10 this year? It's a rough year for me. I foresee a rough year. Like, how do they get around that?
because they have like calculations on like the general estimates for like the business in your sector. And we all know when you're starting off a business, none of those make any sense and they do not apply, right?
Right.
Um, yeah, it's just a complicated like thing. And I think people don't always understand what they're getting into when they're starting a business in Italy or even when they're moving to Italy, you know? So that's like my little spiel on that. How I got started with me doing Italy. My parents were like, I guess almost always like entrepreneurs slash side hustlers. You know, my father basically almost always worked for himself. So he had a garment factory. He used to make uniforms for the hospital for Trinidad and Tobago.
Oh my goodness, he made your wedding dress, which was like the
Yeah.
most beautiful wedding dress. I will
Yeah.
drop a photo of that in the chat or something. I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure how we're going to do that, but I think that everyone needs to see how beautiful that dress is. And to know that your dad made it,
Yeah.
oh, shout out to your dad, but
So
continue.
there was always kind of that. And then I guess because I'm your spiritual woo-woo friend, I had another friend call me and she was like, I had to talk to you because you're my woo-woo friend. And I was like, oh, really? I did not know, but I can work with that, right? Because she's awesome, like you. And basically, I had, I'm gonna call it a premonition. I had a knowing that I had to take a specific course. I don't know why or where that came from. I've told you this story, Shari. I was looking at this movie and I'm like crying, like just rainfall tears. And at the end of the movie, I just had this feeling that I needed to sign up this course that was like several thousands of dollars. Um, by this online business owner that I barely knew. And I didn't even know what the course was about. But I was like, well, if this is what I'm supposed to do, I'll do it. And it turned out that course, I thought it was like for online business owners, but it was like for online course creators, which I found out like while I was about to insert my, like credit card information.
You're
and
like,
I was
hold
like,
up.
but I had already committed to it. Like, that knowing, and I followed
But
it.
but not just committing to it like financially, right? But I'm your woo-woo friend, whatever that means, because we're like spiritual, we're about energy, we're about manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
Following your gut. I always tell
Mm-hmm.
people follow that gut feeling because it's 9 out of 10 times it's gonna like lead you in the right direction. Because I
Mm-hmm.
hate being that person that's like, I should have done that. I should have packed that. I knew that I should have done. It's like, how often do you say, oh, well, oh, I shouldn't have done what my gut said to do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you have like a really funny gut that leads you down wrong paths all the time. But usually, like, if your moral compass is in the right place, it's going to lead you down the right road. So your gut was like, let's just start this online course and teach people how to move to Italy.
Well, at the point in time, I was like writing a guidebook about Milan. So I was like, well, I'll use some of the principles in, that I'm learning to like marketing of my guidebook. And then basically, like 2 months after the guidebook came out, COVID happened.
Uh,
Guidebook to Milan, epicenter to everything that is COVID in the Western world.
it was really bad over there. Like watching the news, it was like really bad. I'm in New York, so obviously it was really bad in New York. But I remember seeing like the Italian numbers, and I was like, how are they going to bounce back? Because you guys had a really like old population, I guess, that got hit really bad. But yet
Mm.
during COVID, it was a time where a lot of people said, I'm over this. It's remote work environment now. I can make this move. So I mean, I guess it was the perfect time to launch.
It was a perfect time to launch my Move to Italy course, right? And so between me like having this premonition about like taking this other man's course and starting doing Italy in its current iteration, I mean, it must have been a year or 2 years went by, right? So it's not like I did it and I knew exactly what result, that was going to have. But since then, I've, probably had about 200 people take my course. I have 20 to 30 people who have like physically moved to Italy and or purchased homes in Italy. And
Oh, that's
considering this isn't
awesome.
something like you go, I mean, I
Right.
think those are pretty good results. And
I
the best
think
part
so
is when
too.
they write me and then they're like, Thea, I'm happy. And thank you because you made it possible. And then I feel good.
So I know that like all of your move to Italy stories are like great stories. Is there one that stands out? Like someone that really went for it, like they dropped it all, or they had like maybe even challenges, and yet they overcame those challenges. So like, what was,
There's
I guess, a story that stands out?
two, two. The
Okay.
first one, and I'm not going to say her name because I
No,
know
not
she
at
can
all.
call me, right? But she contacted me and she was like, my niece or somebody told her about me. And she's like, I want to move to Italy. I've never been to Italy. Exactly. She's like,
Okay.
my brother lived there for a while in the army, and I just know that's where I want to live. And I was like, well, I can understand following a feeling when you have the knowing, even if it makes no sense whatsoever, right?
Right.
But let's make sure you get the help and you have everything in place so you're happy with this decision, you
Right.
know?
And then even the transition might be a little rough after she gets there because she's like, I never even been here before. I saw it in movies. It doesn't like the movies,
Exactly.
right? So what happened next?
Exactly. Well, I mean, like and I mean, she was going through a divorce. Her mother passed away. So she had a lot of stuff going on in her life at the point in time, But she ended up working with one of the immigration attorneys that I work with. And so she definitely had like the handheld situation. Obviously, like there was like twists and turns, like the house she was initially supposed to stay in. And she booked it during COVID. I mean, it was this gorgeous apartment in the center of Florence, just like historic and palatial and all those kinds of things. But the minute like they opened back up the doors to traveling, they were like, ha ha, we're going to put this back on short-term rentals and make more money.
Aww.
Like, she's like, Thea, I have my visa. I have everything. I don't have a place to live. So we had to find her someplace else to live. I remember a few times she called me and she works online and like the internet is down and she has like an important call and I'm like, she's like, what do? I was like, you go to the store and you get a like the internet thing that you can hook up to your phone. I mean, granted, you could hook up your phone generally anyways, but you can get like the router, the portable router. And I was
Like a
like,
little hotspot or something.
exactly. So I was
Okay.
like, you can still do your work calls and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I loved her story because she's a very, like, obviously, like, she was like, God told me to, very godly woman. And I remember like she had been in Florence for like a month, and she's like in the piazza in Florence and talking about how the guy next to her is like smoking a cigar and how she doesn't like it. So she asked the waiter to move her to another seat. And the guy's like, no, no, no worries. I'll move. You don't have to move. And they ended up becoming friends. And turns out he was like some count,
What? That's a whole nother story. Are they together? Did they get married? Did she marry
No,
Count
they didn't
so
get
and so?
married. But she was like, she and the count are now friends. And the count was like, oh, you can stay in one of my properties. And she's actually sending me images of the count who basically owns like half or a quarter of Florence.
How amazing is that? But that's manifestation, right? Just staying in
Yeah.
alignment, staying positive, knowing that things happen for you, not to you. She attracted the
Mhm.
count. She even
Yeah.
attracted that smoke going her direction. The wind could have been blowing the other way, and it blew it
Yeah.
right towards her. That's
She has a great energy.
amazing.
I mean, she had a few times where she was like about to lose her, you know?
Hey, that happened. That
But
happened.
like a few months ago, she made it through and she's like, Thea, I don't remember if it's her first year or her second year anniversary. She's like, but I just wanted to tell you that I'm happy. And I'm so like, and I always say, like, you get to Italy, you move to Italy, the first month, you're going to be like jumping off the walls, excited. So it's when I get the 1 year message, when you've already gone through like some of the like initial downs, and then you're back up again and you're like, no, this was the best thing for me. That's when my heart sings. So
I
she's
love
number one.
it.
Number two, can I say number two? Do we have time for
Yeah, we
that?
have a little bit of time for number two. Go ahead.
This was just, she, every so often, I like to do a scholarship to help somebody move to Italy that wouldn't be able to afford my course or something like that. And so she was an Italian, like descendant of an Italian immigrant, and she already had like her passport through her family line from, I want to say, El Salvador. Never been to Italy as well, right? She was the first person in her family to go to college. She had been working for like a nonprofit, like in El Salvador, to help people who were even like less advantaged than she was, while like working online for like a call center in the United States. I
Okay.
loved her because I could tell she had a lot of gumption, if that's a word. If she just had a lot of drive, and she's just like a good person. And so we started working together, and I helped her like figure out how to find a job online or in person in Italy, and what she needed to do and all that kind of stuff. And so she moved here last year as well. And so yeah, she was
What
like number
city?
two. Rome. She
Nice.
moved to Rome. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what are some encouraging words that you could give to somebody, right? Because yeah, we're talking about how down to earth you are, how you work with down to earth and real people every day. We know
Mm,
that life comes with its challenges. You have a job, you might have kids, you have a mortgage maybe, you might
mhm,
be going through a divorce, you might be going through loss. Like, but somebody wants to just go for it. They have that feeling in
mhm,
their stomach, or they
mhm,
watched a movie, read a book, took an
mhm,
online course, and they feel
mhm,
like this is the time that I need to move or
mhm.
make that change in life. What are some like encouraging words that you could give them that maybe like you've given some of your students in your class, or maybe just in life in general, that
Mm.
advice that you've taken?
I mean,
It's a deep question. It's a dedeep question.
there's a gazillion ways we could go with this. I mean, part of it even goes back to how we started off this thing about following your gut and your intuition. And I like to say, because there have been occasions when I did not follow my gut and follow my intuition. And that same other business mentor, he probably mentioned in one of his like podcasts, that's a beautiful thing too. because you learn to identify what your gut and your intuition feels like, right? And so I remember, I mean, this was right before COVID, and I was flying to New York, and I had a voice in my head that said, Thea, pack a bigger bag. And I was like, pack a bigger bag,
I remember this. Yes.
right?
Yes. Go
And I
ahead,
was
finish the
like,
story.
I'm going to be back in Milan in 2 days. What are you talking about packing a bigger bag? And I remember it because it was so strange. And I literally had like my hand on the door about to walk out of the house. Right. And then with all the things that happened in the world, I ended up being away from home for like a month and a half. So I was
Yep.
like, oh, so
And then they
that's
had that travel restriction during COVID. And you were like,
it.
Shari, I don't think I'm going to make it home. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then it hit when we were watching like CNN or something. And I think you were on like a CNN episode. So shout out to CNN. But
Right.
they were like, yeah, borders closed to Italy. And you had to fly in through like Switzerland. How'd you end up
I
getting
flew through
home?
Zurich and all that kind of stuff. That was before all of that, because like basically Italy shut down, but the US was still like doing its thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, do I stay here? Do I go back? I remember I called my father. My father's like, you were crazy. And then, well, anyways, that's like a different story.
Yeah, long story
Right?
short, follow your gut for sure.
Follow your gut.
Pack an extra panty, okay? When ladies out
Yeah,
there,
that I
when you have like
always do.
5 in there for a weekend trip, yeah, just
I
put more
always pack
because
like 3 extra panties
me too. Me too. Because
in your
what could go wrong?
carry-on.
Yeah, not even
Not
don't
in
even
your
check it
checked
in.
luggage.
You already know. We travel so much that you already know. Like your check bag may or may not make it, but guess what? I have fresh underwear, so I will see you at the bar later tonight. But Thea, it was a pleasure having you on the show today. You guys check out Thea's website. Where can they find you? Like on social and your website?
Yeah. I'm doing Italy everywhere. So it's doingitaly.com, at doing Italy for like Instagram. Right now it's doing Italy like dash courses or something on Facebook because my account, don't have access to it. You know how that
Oh my
works.
gosh, Facebook, yeah, they be tripping. I don't know. But we will give you guys all of the information, like the show notes. And thank you so much for talking to us today, Thea, about Italian life, a little bit of everything. Cheers to that. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.